world in 10,000 BC was a land of ice, hunger, and survival. Snow-covered valleys stretched as far as the eye could see, and giant creatures ruled the frozen plains. Among them, none were more feared or respected than the mammoth, a massive beast that carried the weight of winter itself. Tribes of humans lived scattered across the icy lands, struggling each day to find food, warmth, and hope. For them, hunting a mammoth was not only a test of courage, but also a battle for life. One successful hunt could feed an entire tribe for months, but one mistake could mean death. In one forgotten corner of this frozen world lived a small tribe known as the Stoneclaws. Their leader, a young man named Kor, was not the strongest or the oldest, but he carried a strange fire inside him, a feeling that something greater waited beyond the endless snow. For weeks his tribe had gone without a successful hunt. The children were weak, the fires burned low, and the spirits of the people were fading. Then one morning, as the wind howled across the cliffs, they saw it. The largest mammoth they had ever encountered, walking slowly through the valley below. Its tusks glowed faintly under the pale sun, and its size made even the hunters tremble. Some believed it was no ordinary beast, but a creature sent by the gods. Kor felt both fear and wonder. He knew that this hunt could save his people, or destroy them. The elders warned that the valley was cursed, a place where the earth itself swallowed men whole. But hunger was stronger than fear, and Kor decided they must follow the mammoth's trail. As the tribe prepared, whispers spread among them that the creature was being followed by shadows, strange marks on the snow that no one could explain. It seemed as if something else was hunting the mammoth too. When they set out, the world seemed to change around them. The air grew still and the sounds of the forest faded. The footprints of the mammoth led through narrow paths of ice and deep cracks that looked like frozen wounds on the earth. Kor could feel eyes watching them from the distance, but when he looked back, he saw only snow and silence. The deeper they went, the stronger the unease became. One of the hunters found strange bones buried in the frost, too large to belong to any known animal, yet too broken to understand what they were. Kor wondered if something older than the mammoth lived in these lands, something that had been forgotten by time. As night fell, they made a small fire and watched the mammoth's glowing path far away. The beast seemed to move with purpose, not like an animal searching for food, but like a guardian protecting something hidden. Kor could not explain the feeling that grew in his chest. It was not just hunger or fear, but a strange pull, like the mammoth was leading them somewhere they were meant to go. The next morning, the hunters followed the tracks into a valley that none had dared enter before. The walls of ice around them were carved with ancient marks, spirals, animals, and symbols that glowed faintly as the light touched them. The tribe felt a shiver of awe. They did not know who made these signs, but they felt power in them. Even the wind moved differently here, as if whispering secrets of the past. Then suddenly the earth shook beneath their feet. A low rumble came from the depths of the ice, and a crack opened across the valley floor. The mammoth let out a deep roar, echoing like thunder, and for a moment, Kor saw something move beneath the ice. A dark shape, long and massive, like a sleeping shadow that had just awakened. The hunters panicked, but Kor stood still, frozen between fear and curiosity. He realized that this was no ordinary hunt anymore. Something ancient slept beneath this land. Something older than the tribes, older even than the mammoths. He didn't know if the beast was protecting it or being hunted by it. But one thing was clear. Whatever was hidden under the ice was alive, and it had just sensed their presence. As the tribe pulled back to safety, the mammoth turned its great head toward them. Its eyes, deep and glowing like molten amber, met Kor's for a brief second. In that moment, Kor felt as if the creature was trying to tell him something, a warning or perhaps a call. Then the mammoth roared again and charged deeper into the mist, disappearing into the unknown. Kor stood in silence as the snow began to fall again. Behind him, his people begged to return, but his heart told him their destiny lay ahead. Whatever was sleeping beneath that ice was part of a secret that could change everything. The hunt was no longer about food or survival. It was about truth. And Kor knew the real journey had only just begun. The storm grew stronger as Kor and his hunters followed the faint trail left by the mammoth. Snow blinded their eyes and the wind screamed like a warning from the mountains. Still, Kor pressed on, his heart driven by something he could not explain. He could feel a strange pull, like the earth itself was calling to him. The others followed in silence, their fear hidden behind tired eyes. The valley ahead looked endless, with ice walls towering like frozen giants. Every step echoed, and those echoes seemed to whisper their names back at them. After hours of walking, They found signs that the mammoth had passed through, huge footprints pressed deep into the snow, drops of frozen blood and broken trees scattered across the path. But mixed with those tracks were others, long claw marks twisted and sharp like something had been crawling beneath the ice. The hunters exchanged uneasy looks, but Core's mind was fixed on one thought. They were not alone here. Something was following the mammoth, and maybe it was watching them too. The deeper they went, the more the air began to change. It grew warmer, and a faint mist rose from the cracks in the ground. Strange lights shimmered beneath the ice, glowing blue and green like trapped stars. The tribe could not understand what they were seeing. They had always believed the world ended beyond the mountains, but here, it felt like they had stepped into a forgotten part of creation, a place untouched by gods or men. Then they found something that stopped them in their tracks. An ancient wall buried under the snow, carved from black stone. The carvings on it were old and strange, showing men and beasts hunting side by side, and above them a massive shadow that looked like a sleeping serpent curled around the world. The hunters could not read the symbols, but they felt the meaning, a warning left by those who came before. Core touched the cold surface and felt a vibration deep beneath it, as if something inside the stone was alive and breathing slowly. Suddenly, a low sound rolled through the valley, not the cry of wind, but a deep echo from the earth. The ice cracked again, spreading like lightning across the ground. From a distant ridge, a massive shadow appeared. It was the mammoth, wounded and covered in frost, moving slowly toward the end of the valley. But behind it, the snow seemed to move as well. Something huge was shifting under it, breaking through the surface like a wave of darkness. The tribe stood frozen as the shape took form. It was not a creature they had ever seen. Long black limbs crawled out from the ice, and a mouth of glowing lines opened with a sound that shook the air. Core realized that this was what the mammoth was running from, the real hunter of the valley. The ancient carving suddenly made sense. The serpent was not a story. It was real, buried beneath the frozen world, waiting to rise again, and somehow their presence had awakened it. The mammoth's roars grew louder, as if it was trying to lure the monster away. For the first time, Core saw the beast not as prey but as something noble, a guardian fighting against the darkness. The hunters panicked, wanting to run, but Core stood still. He felt something powerful inside him, not courage, but a strange connection. When he looked at the mammoth again, its eyes seemed to glow brighter, reflecting the blue light from the cracks below. He knew then that the creature was not leading them to death, but toward something hidden, something it had been protecting for ages. As the serpent-like shadow rose higher, Core shouted for his tribe to move toward the glowing cliffs ahead. The air was filled with ice and thunder as the ground split open behind them. The mammoth turned to face the darkness, roaring as shards of ice rained down. The hunters ran, following Core through a narrow passage where the ice glowed like crystal fire. They reached a hollow chamber beneath the mountain, where strange symbols covered the walls and an ancient light pulsed from within the stone. There, in the center of the chamber, stood a giant circle carved into the ground, filled with strange runes that shimmered faintly. It looked like a doorway, but it was frozen shut. Core felt drawn to it as if it recognized him. When he stepped closer, the glow beneath the ice grew stronger. He placed his hand on the frozen surface, and a spark of light ran through the lines, spreading like veins of fire. The ground trembled again, and a low hum filled the air. His people fell to their knees, terrified, but Core could not pull away. He felt something enter his mind, visions of stars, burning worlds, and creatures that shaped the earth before time began. Then, in one sudden flash, he understood. The valley was not a place of death. It was a gate, a bridge between worlds that had been sealed for thousands of years. The mammoth was its guardian, and the serpent was its prisoner. By entering this place, they had broken the balance. The echoes around them grew louder as the serpent's roar filled the valley. Core turned to see the glowing eyes of the beast through the cracks above. The mammoth stood between the monster and the passage, ready for its final stand. Snow and light swirled tea. The silence after the roar felt heavier than any sound. Snowflakes drifted down slowly, landing on the frozen ground where the echoes of battle had faded. Core stood at the edge of the glowing chamber, his breath misting in the cold air, his heart pounding with confusion and fear. Behind him, his tribe huddled together, whispering prayers to the spirits they no longer understood. The world they thought they knew had changed in moments. The mammoth, once their prey, had become something greater, a symbol of protection, strength, and mystery. But the serpent's shadow still moved beneath the ice, and the trembling ground reminded them that the danger was not over. Kor's hand still burned from touching the circle carved into the ice. The glowing lines had faded, but their mark remained on his skin like faint fire. He could feel something inside him, a strange rhythm, a pulse that did not belong to his own body. It was as if the land itself was breathing through him. Vision still flickered in his mind, images of shining cities made of stone and light, of skies filled with fire, and creatures walking side by side with giants. None of it made sense, yet it felt familiar, like a memory from another life. He began to wonder if the valley was not just ancient land, but a place where time itself was different. The tribe wanted to leave, to climb out of the cursed valley and never return. But Kor could not. Something inside told him that leaving now would only bring the serpent's rage to their people. He believed the valley was a doorway, and that the beast beneath the ice was trying to break through it. The mammoth had been guarding it, and now that balance was broken. The more Kor thought about it, the more he realized that the hunt had never been about food or glory. It had been destiny pulling him toward this moment. As hours passed, strange sounds echoed from deep below. They were not the cries of animals, but more like the hum of energy, a rhythm that made the air vibrate. The ice walls began to glow again, faint at first, then brighter, like veins of light spreading from the ground upward. Kor's people watched in terror as the carvings on the walls changed shape, forming new symbols that no one had ever seen. It was as if the valley was alive, trying to communicate through light and sound. Kor stepped closer to the center of the chamber. The mark on his hand began to glow, answering the symbols on the wall. The connection grew stronger, and suddenly a burst of energy rippled through the chamber. The air shimmered, and for a moment Kor could see through the ice. Vast tunnels, rivers of blue fire, and sleeping shapes buried beneath the frost. He saw the serpent's coiled body stretching for miles, and near its head something else, a huge sphere of light trapped beneath layers of frozen stone. It looked alive, pulsing softly like a giant heart. He understood then that the mammoth had been guarding that light. It was not a creature but a source, an ancient power that once gave life to the land. The serpent wanted to devour it and bring endless darkness to the world above. The mammoth's fight was not against man, but against the return of chaos. Kor realized he had touched the seal that kept that power locked away, and now the serpent was awake, free to rise again. The ground shook harder, and the ice above cracked open, revealing faint glows of fire through the storming snow. The mammoth's distant cries echoed through the valley once more, weak but defiant. Kor felt his chest tighten. He knew he could not let the guardian fall. Something deep inside told him he had a role to play, something greater than he could imagine. His ancestors had left behind signs, and now he was the one chosen to read them. He turned to his people, their faces pale with fear. They looked to him for answers, for safety, but Kor could offer neither. He could only tell them to believe, to trust that the spirits had brought them here for a reason. They watched as Kor approached the glowing circle once more. He pressed his hand onto it again, and this time, the light responded faster, wrapping around him like threads of fire. The symbols on the walls pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The ground beneath him split open slightly, and through the cracks, streams of blue light began to rise. The wind outside screamed louder, and the serpent's roar thundered through the valley, closer now, shaking everything around them. The tribe covered their ears and fell to their knees. Kor stood firm, surrounded by light, his eyes reflecting the energy that flowed through him. He could see the mammoth in his mind, standing on the broken ice, facing the darkness with unshaken strength. The guardian spirit seemed to call to him, guiding him toward something deeper, a connection between man and the ancient forces of the earth. Then, without warning, the ground burst open. A massive wave of energy shot through the chamber, lifting shards of ice into the air. The mammoth's cry merged with the serpent's roar, forming a sound so powerful it felt like the world itself was being reborn. The hunters screamed, but Kor saw something else. Two great lights colliding, one of shadow and one of flame. In that clash he understood the truth. The fight between the mammoth and the serpent was not just a battle of beasts. It was the struggle between creation and destruction, the balance that shaped all life. The light around him flared, blinding and pure, and then vanished into silence. When the shaking stopped, the chamber was dark again. The glowing symbols faded and only a faint hum remained in the air. Kor fell to his knees, exhausted, his mind filled with fragments of vision and power. He looked at his hand and saw that the mark had changed. No longer just lines of light, but now a pattern shaped like the mammoth's tusk. He did not yet know what it meant, but he felt it. A connection, a promise. Above them, the storm continued to rage. The serpent was not defeated, and the mammoth's roars had faded into the distance. The hunt was not over. It had only transformed into something far greater, a battle for the soul of the world itself. The storm howled like the voice of the gods, shaking the frozen land until even the mountains groaned. The world above the valley was no longer calm white silence, but a storm of fury and fear. Kor climbed from the glowing chamber with the mark still burning on his hand. His tribe followed, weak and silent, unsure if they had survived something divine or doomed themselves forever. The snow around them glowed faintly with strange blue light, and the sky seemed alive, twisting with flashes of fire and shadow. Somewhere far ahead, the serpent moved beneath the ice, breaking through the frozen ground like a living earthquake. The mammoth's distant cry echoed once more, though it sounded fainter, as if fading into memory. Kor felt the weight of two worlds pressing on him, the ancient one that had awakened, and the human one that was too small to understand it. He looked at the endless white horizon and knew he could not run. The storm was not chasing them. It was calling him. He remembered the visions, the glowing gate, the serpent coiled around the light, and the mammoth standing as its last defender. The truth struck him like a spark. The light buried beneath the valley was not only a source of power, it was life itself, the heart of the earth that had kept balance for thousands of years. The mammoth was the guardian chosen to protect it. But now that it was wounded and the serpent was free, that task had fallen to him. As Kor walked forward, the ground trembled again. The serpent's enormous head burst through the ice in the distance, scales black as night and eyes burning with cold fire. Its body stretched across the valley, coiling like a mountain come alive. The hunters fell to the ground, frozen in terror, but Kor did not stop. The mark on his hand glowed brighter, spreading light through his veins. Each step he took felt heavier, as if the earth was testing his resolve. The storm's roar became a rhythm in his ears, the rhythm of creation and destruction, of beginning and end. Far across the valley, the mammoth appeared again, broken but unyielding. Blood darkened its white fur, yet its eyes still burned with strength. It faced the serpent one last time, standing between the beast and the heart of the valley. The ground cracked beneath their weight, and the air shimmered with energy. Kor could feel their spirits, locked in a battle older than man itself. The serpent struck, its massive body crushing ice and rock. But the mammoth met it with a roar that shook the clouds. The two forces collided again and again, each blow echoing like thunder. The sky above them opened, flashing with light as if the heavens themselves were watching. Kor knew the mammoth could not hold forever. The guardian's strength was fading, and the serpent's hunger was endless. The glowing mark on his hand pulsed faster, filling his body with warmth that burned like fire and ice together. He realized that the power of the gate, the same force that had once sealed the serpent, was now within him. The valley had chosen him to finish what the mammoth had started. He turned to his people, their faces pale with fear, and told them with his eyes to go. They hesitated, but they understood. As they disappeared into the mist, Kor walked toward the battle. Each step closer made the world blur around him. The cold vanished, replaced by a strange calm. The serpent saw him now and paused, its burning eyes narrowing. It sensed the same power it had once feared, the same light that had imprisoned it ages ago. Kor raised his hand, and the mark shone like a second sun. The ground beneath him split open, revealing veins of glowing energy that spiraled toward the sky. The serpent roared, trying to crush him beneath its shadow. But the light grew stronger, wrapping a row.